Okay, good evening, everybody. Let's get started, or let us continue our journey through this wonderful book, Atmabodha. So, okay, sorry about that. I was just turning the recording on so that we get the video. Okay, so we'll continue our journey through Atmabodha. This is such a wonderful book. I will start from verse 27 because when I was looking at my notes, we didn't discuss the verse 27 properly. So we will try to understand, and then we will go to the next topic. The next topic is self-revealing Atma. Verse 20 to 27, we have seen what is the identity, right? Your identity, I mean, your identification with the false identification with mental activities. And now onwards, we are going to talk about the self-revealing Atma up to verse 31. And from verse 32 onwards, we will do the Nidithyasana. Nidithyasana is a wonderful topic. But now onwards, please pay attention and raise any questions immediately. You don't have to wait for me to stop or anything like that, because this is very important, because we are going to get into that type of topics which are generally discussed in Upanishads. So this is not fundamental topics. This is not preliminary topics. This is advanced topic. So we will cover 3 verses every day, but we will try to make sure that we understand, at least intellectually understanding that verses. Of course, it needs a lot of practice for us to get into that verses from an experience perspective, but at least we need to make sure that we understand that verses, the essence of that verses. So with that, let's start with some chanting. I requested Anu to do some chanting for us. Let me share the screen and show you. These are the topics we have in Atmabodha. So the first, we started with introduction or the spiritual roadmap. Then we talked about the problem of superimposition. We saw where exactly we get superimposed. And then we talked about the all-pervasive consciousness. And finally, we talked about the false identity or attribution to mental activities. So we will cover one more verse in that topic, and then we will go to the next topic, which is self-revealing Atma. But before that, let's do a quick chanting from verse 27 to 31. So Anu, could you please chant 27 to 31?
Yeah. Rajju sarpavadaatmanam jivam jnatva bhayam vahet naham jivah paratmeti jnataschet nirbhayo bhavet atmavabhasayatyekah buddhyadinindriyaण्यपि दीपो घटादिवत्स्वात्मा जडैस्तैर्नवभास्यते स्वबोधेनान्यबोधेच्छ बोधरूपतयात्मनः न दीपस्यान्यदीपेच्छ यथा स्वात्मप्रकाशने निषिध्य निखिलोपाधीन् नेति नेतीति वाक्यतः विद्यादैक्यं महावाक्यैः जीवात्मपरमात्मनोः आविद्यकं शरीरादि दृश्यं बुद्बुदवत्क्षरम् एतद्विलक्षणं विद्यात् अहं ब्रह्मेति निर्मलम्.
Thank you, Anu. This is great. You're chanting it very well. And anybody, like, there is a recorded chanting of Swami Brahmananda. Chinmay means he's from Chinmaya Mission, Bangalore. He's known for his lovely chanting. So that version is available in our library. Anybody wants to listen to these verses, it is really, really good. If you understand the meaning, that itself is a great kind of a meditation or even a Nidithyasana. We will talk about that a little bit later. So let's come back to the topic. We are going to pick up the thread. The topic we were discussing was identification, false identification with mental activity. So we started this discussion by taking the example of the dream, Sopna Drishtanda. So the means on a high level, the problem here is our real identity is Atma. But what happens when we uses a body, mind, intellect complex? We get falsely identify with the body and the mind. So to illustrate this, Shankaracharya gave a brilliant example, which is the dream. So while you are in a dream, your identity is with the dream body, and that dream body and the dream mind exist in a dream space and time. So while you are in the dream, you know for sure that your body never went to moon. Let's say that you are dreaming that you are in a moon, or you are in a, say, Antarctica. You never been to Antarctica, or you never was in Antarctica. So that what happens? The mind projected some identity, some mental activity, and you identified with that mental activity. If you really think about this, just think about this very closely, right? Then you will understand. What was that dream body? Is that dream body has any real existence? Think through that. Is there any reality for that dream body? Yes, there is a reality in that dream space and dream time. But in our waking state, right? I'm lying down on my bed. With respect to that body, there is no identity. So then where exactly I'm getting identified? Think through that scientifically. So what is being happening? So my mind projects certain mental activity, certain ahankara, certain dream space and dream time. And what happens? I get identified with that dream body. In fact, that dream body is a mental activity. To that mental activity, I get identified, and I falsely think that all the pleasures in that dream is my pleasures, and all the pain in that dream is my pain. So what happens? There is a mental activity, chitta vritti. While my body is lying down in the bed, my mind projects certain mental activity, and that mental activity relates with some other mental activity, which are incidents and events and places and time in the dream world. And then when these two association happens, my Atma illumines this. Because of my Atma, I am aware of what is happening in my mind. But what happens? Who is the knower and who is the known? In fact, the dream body is something that is known to me. But instead, what I take is, I take the dream body as myself, and then I start to relate myself with everything else. It's like if you identify yourself with your car, and you try to identify, means relate with that car with the world outside, right? So when I look at another car, I think that, okay, that's a branded car, or this is an older car, or this is a problem. All that happens. So I identify myself with something that belongs to me and get afraid. My vision get corrupted and get afraid. So please remember this example, this dream example, and also go two steps down in that dream example and try to understand what is happening. So in the dream, first vritti, means we call it as like an operating system of a computer, right? That is the ahankara. Without that ahankara, you cannot function. When you switch on a computer, what happens? The operating system will boot, and on top of the operating system, the PowerPoint will come, or Word will come, or Excel will come, or another program will come. So just like that, when you are in a dream, what happens? There is an ahankara vritti, meaning self-identity vritti, and that vritti is the dream dream mind, and that dream mind identifies with what? A dream body, and then it starts relate with the dream objects. So what the reality is that, and what is happening is my Atma, which is the consciousness that reveals me. The function of the consciousness, if you go back and think about the function of the consciousness, consciousness is something that reveals my mental activity. This is our definition of consciousness. The Vedantic definition of consciousness is a neurological definition of consciousness. Vedantic definition of consciousness is that by which I am aware of my mental activity. So that awareness, if that awareness get identified with a particular vritti or a set of vritti, then I feel that I'm limited to this particular time, space, body, and everything. And then as a dream body, I starts relating myself in the dream world. So if I see a problem in the dream world, for example, if I get hit in the dream world, what happens? I feel pain. And if I see a tiger in the dream world, I'm afraid. If I get sick, I'm sad. So the happiness, sadness, all the shita, ushna, sukha, dukkha, all that happens when the dream body interacts with the dream world. So if you really think through this example, the Vedanta is going to be clear, because your identity is not that dream ego. Your identity is not that dream body. Your identity is something outside of that. Like that, I may use that dream body, I may use that dream mind, and I may use the dream and space as long as I transact within the dream. But the moment I get out of the dream, I leave my identity with those things, but I continue to exist. And from dream, I come to the waking state. In the waking state, means I identify with a physical body and a mind, and the mental activity associated with the waking world. So the same consciousness that illumines that, it gets identified with that waking ego. So what happens? I feel again individuality. This is the deluded individuality. So instead of identifying with all pervading one Atma, I get identified with each of my body and the mind. It's like another example given was hundreds of ports were there. Each port get identified with the dreams, the space within that port. Every port think that I am this much, I am limited, this is the space I am. But really speaking, the limitation of that space was introduced by the port itself. There is only one space. Like that, there is only one consciousness. My identity, your identity, and everybody's identity is the one Atma. But what happens? When that Atma or when that Jiva gets identified with that dream ego or the waking ego, I feel differently. So this is the gist of these verses from 20 to 27. Let me pause. Is that example very clear? The dream example? Because if that example is clear, this is very simple. Otherwise, this is too complicated. Any comments? Any questions or comments? Good. So Anu, why don't you chant 27 once again? We'll go over the verses. The concluding verse of this topic. You can unmute and talk anything or ask any questions, because this needs a lot of interaction. Okay, let's continue with this verse.
Rajju sarpavadaatmanam jivam jnatva bhayam vahet naham jivah paratmeti jnataschet nirbhayo bhavet.
The beauty of these verses are its clarity. The sequencing and the clarity is unbelievable. No other textbook has this much clarity and this much detail. It's brilliant. So Shankaracharya tells Rajju is what?
Rope.
Sarpa?
Snake.
No Vedanta example will be complete without this rope and snake. Perception versus reality. Right. So that is the so-called example, Rajju Sarpa. So the whole idea is, when I look at a rope, if there is in a dark place, that rope can be taken as a snake. When I mistake a rope as a snake, what is going to happen? Fear. As long as my identification, as long as I identify this rope as a snake, I cannot eliminate the fear. If I sit and pray, the fear will not go. The source of the fear will not go. If I meditate, the source of fear will not go. If I do Hatha Yoga, it will not go. There is only one thing that can remove that fear. What is that?
Knowledge.
Proper knowledge. So like that, just like when you see a rope as a snake, you get afraid, right? So means what happens? The moment you identify as a jiva instead of Atma, that causes fear. Think about this. There is a technical term here, jiva. And I used another word called ahankara earlier. Can anybody tell me what is the difference between jiva, Atma, and ahankara? These are non-translatable words. So we need to understand properly what exactly is the meaning. What is Atma? Paramatma. All-pervading consciousness. What is jiva?
Physical body.
No. Actually, jiva is a combined entity, right? So jiva means it is a combination of physical body, subtle body, causal body, and a reflection of Atma.
Paramatma.
So this compound entity is called jiva. So the physical body is inert and insentient. Subtle body is inert and insentient because it is subtle matter. Causal body is also inert and insentient because it is causal matter. So all the activities, physical activities happens at the physical body, mental activities happens at the subtle body. And the reflection of the Atma is going to reveal these mental activities to me. Because of the Atma, I am aware of the mental activities happening in. And now what happens? These entities together, taken as an individual object, and I identify with that particular object. And that is what is called jiva. So Shankaracharya here tells, when the jiva means when you identify yourself as the jiva, identification of yourself as a jiva, a limited person, instead of Atma, causes fear. The fact is that jiva is a combined entity. My real identity is not the jiva. My identity is Atma. Atma, with Atma, I am using a physical body and a subtle body. That's it. That is my real identity. Just like the mistaken identity of a rope as a snake causes fear in me, like that, the mistaken identity of the Atma as a jiva causes fear. Go back to the dream example. In dream, what is happening? What is my identity? A Sopna Jiva. In that Sopna Jiva is a combination of the dream body, dream mind, illumined by the same Atma. Correct? In the dream state, my identity is the Sopna, means the dream personality of me, dream Jiva, or the Sopna Jiva, we can call it as. The Sopna Jiva constitute of the Sopna body. Sopna means the dream body, the dream mind, illumined by the dream Atma. So if I identify myself with the dream body, dream mind, in the dream time and space, what is going to happen? Anything happening in that dream world and dream world would be a source of fear to me. But the moment I shift my identity from the dream body, dream mind to the actual me, relatively actual me, let me put that way, because the other identity is also not absolute identity. The person lying on the bed is also not the real me, right? At least if I can shift my identity from that Swapna Jiva to the relatively real Jiva, that itself is going to solve the fear. All of you experienced the, what you call that dream? Lucid dream. So the moment the dream becomes lucid dream, the dream becomes a fun. Nothing is going to make you afraid of that. So like that, shift your identity. Shift your identity from the body and the mind to the Atma. So the next means portion of the verse Shankaracharya tells, Naham Jivam. I am not Jiva. But what exactly I am? I am Atma. I am not Jiva. My real identity is Atma. And by knowing which, I will eliminate all the fears in me. Look at the way the verse is brilliantly painted, right? Just like a false identity of a snake, rope with a snake causes fear in me, the false identity of myself as Jiva causes fear. Understand that you are not the Jiva. You are not a combination of the physical body, subtle body, causal body revealed by Atma, but you are Atma who has a physical body and subtle body for transacting with the world. So the moment you realize that identity, all the source of fears will be disappeared. You cannot be more clear on this topic. It's that clear. Only problem is that interpretation makes us confusing, because I was reading a few commentaries, because the commentators will go on and on and on for pages after pages. And after reading all that, we get confused. But if you go back to Shankara, there is no confusion. One of the greatest characteristics of Shankara is his clarity. You know that, right? It's so clear. And even his Bhashya, it's so clear on Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. Any questions or comments? Is this verse clear?
Yeah, Rajesh, so you explained Jiva and Atma. What about Ahankara?
Ahankara, good question, Rohit. So Ahankara is a mental activity. So Jiva has the physical body, Jiva has the subtle body, and one of the important component of the subtle body is what? Subtle body has 19 components. Remember that? 5 perception, organs of perception, not organs, but the ability to perceive. 5 organs, ability to action. It's not the hardware, but the software. Remember that example? The eye is part of the physical body, but the power of sight is subtle body. So 5 plus 5, then you have Pancha Prana. We talked about that. Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana, Samana, right? That 15. Then you have your mind. Then,
Ego?
yeah, right. That 4 components of the mind. So 19 components are there. Out of that 19 components, 1 component is mind, manaha. And what is the nature of the mind? It's a flow of mental activities. The mental activities will come and go. But think about this. When you boot a computer, after the BIOS, what is getting loaded?
Operating system.
Operating system. What exactly gives a personality to a computer?
Okay.
First thing is operating system.
Yeah.
A Mac OS is different from the Windows. Long time back, you know that, right? Logging into a Unix and a Windows was totally different experience.
Right.
So the operating system gives that initial personality, and everything else is happening with respect to that operating system, on top of that operating system. So an individual, when he boots up, when he goes from a hibernate state to a sleep state, deep sleep state to a waking state, the first mental activity, it's kind of a all time. It's a terminate stay resident program. It stay there always. That is what is ahankara. It gives the individuality to me. There is nothing wrong in ahankara, because without that ahankara, I cannot function in the world. Without the operating system, a computer cannot function in the world. So if computer thinks that operating system is me, that's not correct. So like that, getting identified with ahankara, it can create problem. Ahankara as a tool in me is extremely useful. There is a neural disease where you means this particular vritti won't be loaded. That is a terrible life. I forgot exactly is the name of that disease, but there is a disease.
Sure.
Any other comments? Because this is such an important topic. That's why I wanted to come back and discuss this topic.
So then ahankara would be included in jiva then?
Absolutely. Ahankara is part of jiva.
Part of jiva.
The jiva cannot function without ahankara, but Atma can function without ahankara. And it is because of the Atma, the ahankara is known to me. It's like for the operating system to load. What is the prerequisite? A, the hardware should be functioning. B, even if the hardware and software is perfect, if the computer is switched off, operating system won't be loading and the presence won't be knowing to me. So like that, Atma is that power. Please don't consider Atma is a power, because it's all examples, right? Every example is an example. It has its own limitations. But at least to understand the concept, the subtle body is like a software. The physical body is like a hardware. And we can loosely say that Atma is like power. How many power is there? There is only one power. I'm just pulling that power from, but multiple versions of OS will be there and multiple hardware would be there. Clear? Very good.
Yes, thank you.
So let's go to the next topic. So that completes the fourth topic, which is the false attribution of mental activity. Then the next group, which is the self-revealing Atma. Let's go to that topic. So this translation is provided by Swami Tadatmananda. He has done a beautiful video. In an hour, he describes the entire Atmabodha. I will post that video in the group. Please watch it. It is extremely good. In an hour, the whole Atmabodha verses are described. So thanks to him and thanks to all these great lineage of masters by whose grace we can sit and study these things. Okay, so now let's go back to the concept, the same idea. See, when you study Bhagavad Gita, we won't go to this level of detail, right? This is getting into the real Upanishad concepts. So let's go to the next topic, which is the self-revealing Atma. So earlier we just said the ego or the ahankara or any other mental activity, the happiness, the sadness, the intellectual thinking, relating to another person, even the image of another person, everything is a mental activity. So the physical world I see, how do I really see? The physical world is transformed and represented as a mental activity. Anybody has any question on that? What I am directly seeing is only mental activity. Everybody is clear with that, right? Rupam drishyam, lochanam drik, tak driktum drishyamanasam, drishyadhi vrittaya sakshi. Remember that Shankaracharya's drik drishya viveka. What exactly is the scene and who is the seer? The eye sees a beautiful flower. In that case, I can see that the eye is the seer, the flower is the scene. But is the eye the real seer? What happens to the images captured in the eye? You know the basic biology, right? The optical image captured by the eyes what is going to happen? Amazing transformation algorithms are working there, right? That will be converted into electrical signals. Electrical signals, and from two eyes it will be sent to brain. And in that brain, that will be reproduced as a thought or a mental activity. And really speaking, so in that case, the brain or the mind is the seer, whereas the image captured by the eye is the seen. Now, is the mind the real seer? No, because the mental activity captured by the mind has to be revealed by something else. And that by which this mental activity get revealed is the consciousness. And that is what is Atma. And that is what the consciousness is. It is not an attribute of the mind, just like the so-called modern neurology calls. It's a definition, right? So that's why we are always clarifying what exactly is our definition of consciousness. So this is what is going to happen. So everything else other than me is revealed to me or known to me. It is an object of my knowledge. Whether it is the sun and the moon and the star, right? Whether it is the plant, animal, and human, whether it is happiness, sadness, or intellectual conclusions, all that is known to me, all that is mental activities. Now the point is, who is revealing these mental activities to me? That is what the theme of this verse. So far we were talking about the false identification. Now we are saying that even in the dream, who is illuminating the dream body? Who is making me aware of this dream mind? Who is making me the thoughts in the dream? It's all consciousness. So now we are going to, that's why the title of this topic is Self-Revealing Atma. Everything else is revealed to me by Atma, whereas Atma is self-revealing. And what is the nature of that self-revealing Atma, which is our true identity? Are you with me? Like, this is at least intellectually with me, right? Intellectually, it is not that difficult. Once you get the idea, it is not that difficult. And till you get it, this will be a mystery. But now, if you go to any other scripture, any other Upanishad, the same concept is presented in different means. That's it. Other than that, if you got this idea, the Vedanta is clear to you. No problem. Okay, so Anu, could you please stand?
आत्मावभासयत्येकः बुद्ध्यादीनीन्द्रियाण्यपि दीपो घटादिवत् स्वात्मा जडैस्तैर्नावभास्यते.
Beautiful. So Shankaracharya tells what exactly reveals things to me. Clearly concludes only Atma. Atma means consciousness here. Only consciousness or the Atma reveals things to me. Nothing else. He negates everything, right? So he tells Atma alone reveals things to me. Ekaha. Atma, only Atma reveals things to me. Right? Buddhi, buddhyadi indriyanapi. Even the mental activities, not just the external world, even the physical, mental, intellectual activities are revealed by Atma. The activities of my mind and the senses, even that is revealed by Atma. So then he gives a brilliant example. How? Deepa and Khata. Khata means what? Pot. Deepa is light. In this example, Deepa and Khata, who reveals whom? Because of the Deepa, the Ghata is revealed. The pot is revealed because of the Jiva. So just like, because of the Deepa. Just like that, because of the Atma, these bodies, the senses, everything revealed to me. So a thought reveals to me because of the consciousness. An emotion is revealed to me because of the consciousness. I see another person outside because of the consciousness in me. So it is that consciousness that reveals everything else to me. Everything else is revealed. If that Deepa is not there, the Ghata is not visible, the mat is not visible, the building is not visible. So whatever happens in that vicinity is revealed to me because of that light. So like that, the consciousness in me reveals every mental activity that happens in me. So the awareness in me, the consciousness in me, that is Atma. The body is not me. The mind is not me. The intellect is not me. The prana is not me. But I have all that. Without body, mind, intellect, and prana, I will not be able to transact with this world outside. So just like without a dream body and a dream mind, I cannot interact with the dream world. But for me to be aware of what is happening there, I need to have the Atma. Without the Atma, there is nothing. Now let me ask you a question. What happens in deep sleep? You are not aware of anything. That means that is the Atma not functioning.
There is no mental activity.
Exactly. There is no mental activity. You go to a movie theater, full dark, there is nothing in the screen. That's exactly what deep sleep is. But when the projection happens, what is going to happen? Dream will come. Instead of projection, if there are some physical actors come and dance there, that is a kind of a waking state. These are all examples. Don't take it literally, but this is what it is. This is the whole idea. Atma is the illuminator. Any questions?
So Rajesh, that last sentence, but your mind and senses being insentient cannot reveal Atma?
Correct. So
what is it
the
trying to
Ghata, let's say that it is the Atma that reveals your thoughts. It is because of the electricity that I can see my operating system, I can see my program. The operating system and the program are inert and insentient, so they cannot reveal the power. They cannot help the power to see. So like that, the mind cannot reveal Atma. It is the Atma is the knower, the mind is the known. That's it. Because Atma only Atma can know something. Everything else is indirect knowledge. And that's why I was talking about that multiple levels of perception. Initially, the eyes capture the image. That image will be captured into the mind. And what is captured in the mind is revealed by Atma. So without Atma only can reveal anything. Everything else is inert and insentient. That's what it is. The Deepa can reveal the pot. The pot cannot reveal the Deepa. If that Deepa is not there, the pot cannot reveal anything else. That is a simple example he was using. Excellent. We'll see one more verse and then we will dedicate hopefully 5 minutes to 10 minutes on to question answers. We had a couple of pending questions. Okay, 28, 29. So Anu, could you please chant?
Svabodhe nanyabodhe cha bodharupa patayatmanah na dipasyanyadeepecha yatha swatma prakashane.
Do you need another deepa or a lamp to reveal the first lamp?
No.
No. Why? Because that lamp itself is self-revealing, correct? So in a dark room, if I have a lamp, I can see the printer, I can see the computer, I can see the mic, I can see everything. Because that lamp illuminates everything. And I don't need another lamp to illuminate this lamp, because this lamp itself is self-revealing. So that is what Shankaracharya tells here. He tells, Sobodhe Nanya Bodhescha, to reveal my Atma, I don't need any other external support. Whereas for me to get, for me to know the external world, I need consciousness. For me to get to know my own feelings, I need the consciousness. For me to know my thoughts, I need consciousness. For me to know anything, I need consciousness. But I don't need another consciousness to know my consciousness or to reveal my consciousness. Two reasons. One is, how many consciousness are there?
Only
There
one.
is only one consciousness. So there cannot be another consciousness. Second thing is that if you use the same example, you don't need another deepa to see the first deepa. You don't need another lamp to see the first lamp. The lamp shines by itself. The consciousness shines by itself. It is self-revealing Atma. So just like the consciousness is self-revealing, and no other consciousness is required to reveal that consciousness. Just like the deepa, light lamp, is self-revealing, and no other lamp is required to reveal the nature of this lamp. So now let's pause here. What is the theme of this book?
Atmabodha.
Atmabodha. Bodha there means knowledge. Knowledge about Atma. And what exactly we are seeing here? Nothing can reveal Atma. So only knowledge, because nothing can, you don't need to reveal Atma, because it is already self-revealing and it is self-evident. Everybody is aware of the thoughts happening in you, everything happening in you. So you know that there is an awareness in you. But the problem is that awareness gets superimposed with the mental activities, and I get identified with the mental activities. And there is only one means to get out of this, and that is the scriptures. And typically, by default, I am programmed to get identified with the body and the mind. And we call in Sanskrit something called Viparita Bhavana. Have you heard of that term? This is what you try to avoid in Nidithyasana. Viparita Bhavana means your experience is contrary to the actuality. The scriptures gives a classic example. If you go to a beach during the sunset, what is your experience? You see that the sun slowly sinking into the water. Anybody know the basic science? No. No. The sun is staying stationary. What is going to happen? I am being moved away from the sun slowly. Considering that as the reality, is that my experience? Absolutely not. And that is what is called Viparita Bhavana. How do I get over it? One is you have to understand it, and then you have to make sure that even if you intellectually understand it, it may not be very much evident to you. So you need to establish that fact in yourself. So for that, you have to go through that prescribed path. Karma yoga, upasana yoga, jnana yoga. And what we are talking here is the jnana yoga. The jnana yoga is going to give you that knowledge, but we have to bring that into our experience. And by default, this is not my experience. My experience is viparita bhavana. It is opposite. Okay, so we covered 3 verses. We had a couple of questions. Arnabji, you are there? He was the one having 2-3 questions. Okay, so I will hold that questions for next week. Any other topic anybody wants to discuss? Is this verses clear to you, especially that Sopna Drishtanda? Otherwise, this will be a mystery going forward.
Rajesh, can you just spell out those ahankara, those 19 elements? That's the 5 sense organs, the 5 perception, and then the 4 of the mind, and then there's another.
Manaha, buddhihi, chittaha, ahankara. So it's total 19. 5 powers of perception, 5 powers of action, 10, 5 pranas, 15.
Manaha, 5 pranas, okay.
Yeah,
5.
Manaha, buddhihi, ahankaraha, chittaha. Again, this is one model. There are different types of models. In Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter, Krishna gives a different 8-fold model, if you remember.
Yeah.
I was talking about the Upanishadic model. The 8-fold model is what? Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu kham mano buddhi rehat evacha ahankaramidiyam me pinnaha prakriti ashtada. So that is the 8th, means the 7th chapter of Gita. It doesn't matter. You can dice and slice in any way, but the idea is there is subtle body, and the subtle body is made up of subtle matter. Remember the difference between physical body and the subtle body? We used a brilliant example, a modern example, not from Upanishads, but the modern example is the hardware, the hard disk, and the data stored in the hard disk. A 1 TB hard disk, how much it weighs?
With or without data is the same weight, right?
Yeah, exactly. With or without data means the entire lifetime of yourself is filmed and copied in that hard disk.
Yeah.
No change.
No change. Yeah.
So that is subtle matter. Thank God, actually, the modern, if Shankaracharya was living in this modern world, he would have used all these examples in composing these things. We are blessed to have a lot of such examples now. Imagine
blessed to have people who have tried
Viparita Bhavana and your son moving the other way. Nobody would have even believed him.
Rajesh ji.
Yeah.
You mentioned that about the consciousness, right? So does vasanas play any role in this?
Vasana is not consciousness. Vasana,
no, the subconscious mind, right? The subconscious. Does it play any role in this?
Absolutely. Vasana.
No, so vasana is the previous mental impressions we carried from the previous birth to now, right? So that should be part of this dream and everything, right?
Absolutely. That would determine what I see, how I see things, how I interact. But vasana is an attribute of what? Chitta. Chitta. One of the component, right? Chitta is your memory bank.
Okay.
So manaha is the place of your feelings and everything. Buddhi is the intellect. Then ahankara
Atma
is your individuality. And chitta is your memory bank. That is where you keep all the data. So all these, that is carry forward from the last birth, and whatever you acquired is part of your chitta. So chitta vritti, chitta is precisely called like that, but chitta is called for mind also. Even manaha is called for mind, but this is where it is stored. But the idea is the vasana is part of your subtle body.
Subtle body.
Yeah. Atma reveals that, right? So the way the subtle body functions, what type of thoughts comes to me, what type of emotions comes to me, how do I perceive things, how do I see things, how do I act certain way, all that is controlled and constrained by these vasanas. It's like when you cut the onion, right? After some hours, you may still feel the smell. That's how the word vasana came in. Some impressions are deeply comes to my mind, and that stays there. Thereafterwards, whatever I do, whatever I feel, whatever I act will have that fragrance of that vasana.
So at the time of revealing, that has no place here.
Of course, the chitta vrittis will be colored by these vasanas, right? So what type of vritti comes out of my mind, what type of chitta vritti comes in that. Imagine that this is a pond, and that pond is fully means with say a scent. What happens? Every wave comes out of that will have that fragrance. So Atma just reveals whether it is a bad thought. Atma will reveal that bad thought. If that is a divine thought, the Atma will reveal that divine thought. But what type of thoughts comes to my mind is completely will be influenced by the vasanas. Good question.
That's a major point.
So, yeah. No, I think this we need to understand this again. That's why Swamiji always used to say, Swami Dayananda used to say this. It's not that something you need to be believed in. It needs to be understood properly.
Yeah, Rajesh.
Yes, Rohiji.
Question.
Yeah,
we talked even in Gita class, the Sravana, Manana, and the Nidithyasana. You study the scriptures, you contemplate on it, and then how do you transition from Manana to Nidithyasana?
Okay. Shravana is listening or studying. Studying under a master for a consistent period of time is Shravana. Manana is contemplation, is a loose translation, but manana means you use logical conclusions to connect the dots. You're convinced. The intelligence is not for internalizing. The intelligence is to remove all the doubts and all these obstructions. So one means that's why when you study this Atmabodha and all, it will be crystal clear to me. But once it is done, even then I am separate from that reality, right? Intellectually I know that yes, I am Atma, but that is not my experience. So that is what this Viparita Bhavana is so strong in each one of us. So how do I get out of this Viparita Bhavana? That is where the Nidithyasana will come. I try to establish my identity with Atma through the study through the reflection of what I learned in the scriptures. So just let's give one more day. We are getting into that topic. That is going to be the topic of next topic, the whole Nidithyasana. So we will spend a lot of time in understanding that. And Gina came up with a good idea. Let's do 1 or 2 Nidithyasana. Even though it may not give you the self-realization, but at least it will get you closer to what we are talking here. It's very important.
So is it like a meditation practice?
It's a special form of meditation. Typically, you try to meditate an object outside of you. For example, you're meditating upon the form of Lord Shiva. You see Lord Shiva as separate from you, and you're trying to visualize him, and you're trying to pray to him. You're trying to see his form. You may see the Ganga, you may see the Jada, you may see the serpent, you may see everything. But Lord Shiva is outside of yourself. But in Nidithyasana, I am trying to relate with that Lord Shiva. I am trying to identify my true identity. I am trying to detach from my identity from the chitta vrittis to my own self. Tada drishtuhu surupe avasthanam. Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So this is what we are trying to do in Nidithyasana. So Nidithyasana can be considered as a special form of meditation where I'm trying to detach my identity from the body, mind, senses to my own true nature, which is Atma, with the help of scriptural study. with the help of what I heard and studied and logically concluded.
Okay, thanks.
But the Sravana, Manana, Nidithyasana method will work only when I have a pure and a controlled mind. So, this study is good, but the Nidithyasana may not give the intended result fully. Of course, it will give some result, definitely. But for me to get the full result, that is why Krishna, Arjuna asked, right? Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani khore mam niyo jayasi keshavaha. You say that only knowledge can make me free, but you are asking me to go and fight. Isn't it contradictory, right? Vyami shrenena vakyena buddhim mohayasivame. So we need to have that prerequisites. And we call it as adhikaratvam, right? We studied that in our introduction to Vedanta class. Eligibility to get exposed to this teaching. And viveka, vairagya, shatka sampatti, mumukshutvam. I'm just enumerating.
Yeah.
Viveka, ability to see the right and means the reality and the non-reality. Vairagya means ability to detach from the unreal and get attached to the real. Shatka Sampatti means sixfold qualities of the mind. Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. So that sixfold qualities we need to develop. And finally, Titiksha, right? We talked about that. And finally, Mumukshutvam, a desire to get liberated, a drive towards that liberation. This is achieved through Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. This Adhikaratva. Is that roadmap clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So if there is no questions, we will continue next week with this topic. We will continue this topic of self-revealing Atma. And then we get into Nidithyasana. Nidithyasana is a wonderful book. Somebody texted me one question, which we already answered, but I'll just answer once again. Somebody was asking me which book one need to refer for studying Atmabodha. The first preliminary book is Atmabodha by Swami Chinmayananda. And then even in Santipani Sadhanalaya, the classes were compiled and put that into a PDF form. It is there in the library. You can do that. Poonaji, I think you refer that very often. I know that. Swami Paramatmananda's lectures were compiled. If somebody is interested in a very deep study, you can refer that. And whatever you refer, please keep this basic concepts in the mind, because without that, the commentaries can be confusing. And that is why we always say that these scriptures needs to be learned through a dialogue and a discussion.
Rajeshri, can you please send that only that slide which gives you all the topics? You remember you showed us in the beginning.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Only that I
If
want.
the whole slide is there in the OneDrive, I'll post the link.
Yeah, just that one slide, so we know where we are.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
relate it. Okay, this means this. You know that what.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Okay. So Bhunaji, could you please chant?
Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavaseshyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
Thank you.